You can't blame Drew Dalman for wanting to walk away on his own terms, but now the Chicago Bears have a huge hole to fill in the middle of their offensive line.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. On the show today, we're breaking down the surprise retirement of Bears center Drew Dalman. Take a look at what impact this move is going to have on the offensive line that has a big hole in the middle all of a sudden. We'll look at the salary cap implications for right now, as well as some of the long-term applications of, what happens for the future of this Bears offensive line that Dalman was supposed to be at the literal center of for at least the short term, if not some of the long-term future. We'll also take a look at some potential free agent candidates the Bears could look at to replace him, including one they've already brought in for a visit. And then we'll also take a look at the NFL draft, some prospects that would make for good or the best scheme fits for the Chicago Bears. But how does that play into the equation of what you try and replace at center and what else you want to draft on your offensive line and on across the rest of your roster? A lot to break down. I do want to thank you for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. And the news was, I guess, shocking on Tuesday afternoon when, out of nowhere, Adam Schefter reports that Chicago Bears center Drew Dalman had told the team he's retiring, stepping away at age 27, hanging up the cleats and walking off on his own terms here. I certainly don't think there's any room to feel animosity toward Drew Dalman. It's the individual player's right to step away when he wants to. Sure, you could be disappointed because he was a good center and someone that you would have liked to have for a while around here, but when these guys decide it's time, it's time. And I think more power to him to feel empowered to end his career early and miss out on the opportunity to earn another $14 million a year for the next few seasons, and then even more beyond that. But said, all right, my time has come. And as of now, we don't know exactly what has preempted that decision for him. We hope it's not something super serious behind the scenes that is requiring him to step away. I've seen some speculation that maybe he was dealing with more injuries this season than we knew about and was battling through a lot, and he'd been battling injuries the last couple seasons in Atlanta, and so the idea that maybe just after a while it becomes a little too much and saying, hey, I don't want to keep putting my body through more of this, whatever it might be. Happy for Drew Dalman for going on his own terms and feeling comfortable enough to say, hey, I'm done, despite, I'm sure, plenty of reason to want to stay with the Chicago Bears, to want to keep playing and want to see the success of this team. He's not making this decision lightly. It's not a money grab and taking the money and running, because he would do even more money if he had kept playing. So it's clearly some real strong thought out motivations for him. But now there's a huge hole in the middle of the offensive line for the Chicago Bears. You don't have a center under contract right now with any kind of NFL experience. Even on the reserve futures list, I don't think there's a true center anywhere on this Bears roster, because Drew Dalman is set to Ryan Bates is set to hit free agency after Drew Dalman has retired. There was some talk in the training camp era of this past offseason that Luke Newman has at least dabbled in snapping the ball sometimes as an emergency center. So I guess, that's the closest thing to a center you have on your roster. But we went into this offseason saying, the Bears might have to do something at left tackle, but the rest of the offensive line is set. And you were feeling really good and comfortable about that whole group coming back together. Instead, it's one of the biggest needs on your roster now. Center jumps up to the top, if not at the very top. I mean, it's right up there with safety and the defensive line in terms of the stuff that you absolutely have to address this offseason. And you don't have a ton of salary cap space to be able to address everything you want to address. You were kind of counting on, hey, center was going to be one of the more stable positions here. I guess the only good news, and it's not a net positive, it's a silver lining, I guess, that if, Drew Dalman retired, you do free up a significant portion of his salary cap space to at least be able to replace him. You would rather have the full cost and get Drew Dalman because he's been here and he played at a pretty high level this past season. But when you look at his contract right now, he was set to cost the Chicago Bears $14 million against the salary cap this season. The salary cap math of a retirement is very similar to a trade in the sense that the player's salary, like even the guaranteed salary, comes off of your books right away. So in theory, the Bears would clear up about $11 million of his base salary, and he's due like another, I think, $1 million in other bonuses. So in theory, you would have $12 million of cap space come off of your books for Drew Dalman. But then the math continues. The equation's not done here. So initially, you would have the 12 from the money he was going to get paid in salary and bonuses, but he also has a prorated signing bonus. So when the Bears signed Drew Dalman to the 3-year, $33 million contract, they gave him a $6 million signing bonus. So he got that money up front, but then that signing bonus gets spread over the remaining, or over all 3 years of the contract. So like, essentially, instead of the Bears having to pay that $6 million up front, they could do 2, 2, and 2, right? So that's how his salary cap number gets to 14 because they spread that 6 over the 3 years. When he retires, that $2 million that he was going to cost next year that has been spread out 2, 2, and 2 now comes to this year. So instead of it being $2 million in signing bonus against you this year, it's $4 million in signing bonus against you. So his dead money, the money that he will still count on the salary cap right now, is $4 million. So you went from him, he was going to cost 14 if he was here. When he retires, now he's still going to cost you 4. So the net savings there is $10 million in salary cap space created by Drew Dalman's retirement. That's the $10 million that you can then apply towards replacing him. And if you replace him for less than $10 million, then you do have a net gain in salary cap space as a result of that process. And then the other factor in here is that it is written into, I believe it's the collective bargaining agreement in the NFL rules somewhere, that when a player retires like this and they had a prorated signing bonus like this, the team is allowed to recoup that money from the player. They actually would go to and request that Drew Dalman give them $4 million back because essentially they gave him the $6 million signing bonus. So he got 2 of that. So, I mean, he got all 6 in cash up front, but the Bears only had to pay 2 of it against the salary cap. And so they can ask Drew Dalman, and I think I don't know if it's more or less force Drew Dalman. I don't know the legal ramifications there, but I think it's in the contract language. They can force him to give that $4 million back. That process does not happen immediately. And my understanding is that $4 million in salary cap savings will be a credit on the Bears salary cap likely next year in 2027. So for now, they're still only going to gain the $10 million in cap space, and they'll get the other 4 back from Drew Dalman likely in 2027 by the time that actually kicks in. It's unclear to me exactly what that timeline is and why exactly it plays out that way. It's just, to my understanding, that doesn't happen right away. So functionally, the Bears will only gain $10 million of cap space for now from Drew Dalman. And sometime later in this process, I assume it ends up being the 2027 cap. I suppose it's possible. Could it be later in 2026? I'm really not sure. But for now, the Bears have added $10 million in salary cap space from Drew Dalman's retirement. Again, would prefer to just have Drew Dalman and pay 14 for him, but at least you do get the savings to be able to try and replace him. And this happens to be a free agent class that has a number of starting centers available and a draft class that has some young options as well. So we'll take a look at what the Bears' replacement options will be and try and put together a plan next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is sponsored by Betterhelp. March is a time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day, and to recognize just how much they carry at work, in relationships, in families, and in all the unseen roles they step into every single day. It's easy to celebrate that strength, but it's just as important to make space for their emotional well-being. And honestly, that goes for all of us. And that's where something like BetterHelp can come in. Therapy helps with all that process, creating balance while setting healthy boundaries and supporting your overall well-being. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served worldwide, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, and it works. Fill out a short questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and if it's not the right fit, you can switch at any time. Your emotional well-being matters. Find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Thank you again for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. Whether it's the first time you've ever tuned in or the 500th time you've tuned in, we really appreciate you making us a part of your day. If you'd like to take your listening to the next level, you can check out the Locked On Bears Everydayers Club to get access to an ad-free audio feed of Locked On Bears. It's compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of the major podcasting apps. And right now you can get a free month of the Everydayers Club ad-free audio feed, plus access to the Locked On Bears group chat just for members of the Everydayers Club. If you go to our website, it's lockedonbears.supercast.com. If you use our promo code FREEAGENCY, you're going to get a free month of ad-free Everydayer Club. It's no spaces, just the word free agency is the promo code. Now through March 15th, you can go ad-free and keep this conversation going on Discord. Join the club at lockedonbears.supercast.com, where certainly we'll be keeping close tabs on what the Chicago Bears do to replace Drew Dalman. They've already reached out to a free agent center and are bringing him in for a visit. We'll talk about that in a second. But also, the free agent class more generally has varying levels of talent, but certainly a number of starting centers available to be able to replace Drew Dalman. So as surprising as the decision was, it doesn't necessarily mean panic. Everything is going to go wrong. The offensive line is ruined, and they'll never protect Caleb Williams again, and the whole Ben Johnson offense is going to fall apart because they lost their center. It is, I think, a surprising and significant roadblock and obstacle and new challenge, but not something that the Bears can't at least smooth over and overcome. Like I wouldn't count on the center position improving, and it may even get slightly worse, but I don't think it has to automatically mean disaster and it's going to be a problem all season long as well. So right away, following the Drew Dalman news, the Bears reportedly are bringing in former Washington Commanders center Tyler Biadasz for a workout. He was just released as a salary cap casualty by the Commanders, like a week ago, if even that. He's been a starter for them the last couple of seasons and a reliable starter at that. Hasn't been like a Pro Bowl guy, but someone who you can count on and know what you're getting week in and week out. He has started his career with the Dallas Cowboys, 4 years there. Pretty much started his last 3 seasons in Dallas. Did make one Pro Bowl there, but an all-around solid player. And I will admit I was in college at the same time as Tyler Biadasz. I have met Tyler Biadasz. I don't know him personally. He's not like my friend or anything, but like he's a good dude. I mean, I've interviewed him and been around him enough like that. I would certainly be on board with the Chicago Bears signing Biadasz as a free agent right now. He shouldn't cost as much as Drew Dalman did, and he, in theory, you should be able to get him under contract for the $10 million you saved from the Drew Dalman retirement, right? Like he should be a net savings to be able to go from Drew Dalman to Tyler Biadasz. Now, I think you're also downgrading slightly the level of play, but if you think about like Biadasz was cut by the Commanders when his salary cap hit was going to be around $9 million. He's going to get less than that now as a free agent. Otherwise, they would have traded him to a team that would have been willing to pay him that, not let him hit free agency. Nonetheless, he should be more affordable than Drew Dalman, but certainly maybe not quite as solid or consistent. But Biadasz, cheaper than some of the other potential free agent center options. There are centers out there that are better than Drew Dalman and are going to cost more than Drew Dalman. Like the top name in the free agent class right now, if he hits the open market, currently set to hit the open market, is Tyler Linderbaum from the Baltimore Ravens, 26 years old, playing at a super high level. Like he is clearly the top available free agent center. He would be a good scheme fit for the Chicago Bears as far as an athletic center who can reach on those outside zone type of run blocks, smart pass blocker as well. The problem is Tyler Linderbaum is expected to receive as much as $20 million a year. maybe it comes in a little bit lower than that, but that's the number that's been floated out there. I think that's a wishful thinking. An agent wants him to try and get that high of a number, but like right now, Creed Humphrey is the highest paid center at $18 million a year. So I'm sure his agent says, well, if he's getting 18, Tyler Linderbaum should get more than that. So whether that's 19 or 20 or whatever the number ends up being, but like the Bears were getting pretty good value on Drew Dalman's contract at $14 million a year. He was the third highest paid center, but it's still going to be far less than what a guy like Linderbaum is going to get on the open market this year. And given that the Bears already don't have an abundance of salary cap space, and you got to sign two safeties still, and a new linebacker to replace Tremaine Edmonds at some point, and a couple of defensive linemen ideally, and a bunch of other positions on the roster, I don't think Ryan Poles is in the business of spending more on center now than he was when he had Drew Dalman. It doesn't mean he's in the business of going cheap at the position. I just don't think he's in a spot to spend more than he was. So, is there a Goldilocks just right fit in a free agent like Connor McGovern from the Buffalo Bills, who might be a little bit closer to a price range that the Bears would consider, a little bit closer to that Drew Dalman type of price? I'm not sure that McGovern is, like a head and shoulders upgrade above Drew Dalman, and I think he's maybe a little better of a pass blocker than a run blocker, and maybe the Bears would value a little bit more of a run blocking player in there, but he does have guard versatility. He's been reliable for them. Like McGovern's a really solid center, and I don't think you would be, you'd be fine with McGovern being signed. I'm just not certain that like his price being higher than say Tyler Biadasz is really like worth it all that much. Like if I can get Tyler Biadasz for under $9 million a year, whether I don't know, is it $6, is it $7, is it $8 million a year? Like Tyler Biadasz at $7 or $8 million a year to me is a much better value than Connor McGovern at $12 or $13 million a year. Like I think they're closer in ability than those two salary numbers suggest. Like sure, McGovern's probably a little bit better, but like he's not that much better, and I would rather save some money by going with a Biadasz of style of center as opposed to paying closer to Dalman price to get a player that's not that much better. Otherwise, there are some cheaper options out there. Starting caliber centers, Ethan Posich from the Cleveland Browns, Cade Mays from the Carolina Panthers, Luke Fortner from the Saints, Lloyd Cushenberry from the Titans. That's probably the order I would put those guys in. None of the four of them give me a ton of confidence. They feel a little bit closer to like what we had seen with Coleman Shelton and like Lucas Patrick in Chicago, where they're starting caliber centers, but they're probably not top 20 starting caliber centers. They're probably in that 25 to 30 type of range, or even dare I say lower. So like I wouldn't love it if the Bears go through the offseason and sign Ethan Posick and say that's good enough, or sign Luke Fortner and say that's good enough. Like I think you would have to certainly pair one of these, lower end free agent centers, like even lower than Biadasz. I think I'd be fine if you went through this offseason, if the Bears tomorrow, or even as this podcast comes out, sign Tyler Biadasz right away and say, boom, there's our replacement plan. We saved a couple bucks on the side. We got a good enough center replacement. I'm fine with that. I would be on board with that. But any of the guys below him on the, the center list, that's not enough for me at that position. I would need the Chicago Bears to pair that lower end, cheap veteran free agent center with a rookie in the NFL draft, and not just like a 7th round pick token, kind of like, all right, we drafted one for the sake of drafting one, but like some kind of meaningful draft investment in the center position. And the good news is there are some quality names that would fit well with the Bears and also fit well with where the Bears are picking. You're not taking a center in the first round. There's not really a first round center in this draft anyway. So maybe it wouldn't be the end of the world to take one a little bit later on. But I don't know if I'm ready to throw a rookie center in as the starting plan A. So we'll take a look at some of the draft prospects to know and how the draft fits into this bigger picture of the Bears, not rebuilding their offensive line, but trying to stay ahead of their offensive line development plan. That's next on Locked On Bears.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends
Wrong one.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
So the Bears are going to be in the market for drafting a center, almost regardless of what they do in free agency, but especially if they don't get a really solid option. If they end up going bargain bin in free agency, then drafting a center is going to be imperative at that point. The good news is it's a relatively deep draft class at center with some good fits where the Bears are picking and some good fits for the Ben Johnson's outside zone running scheme. But I don't think it's as simple as just draft a center, just draft a center and throw him in there. Like there's a little bit more to consider here in this conversation. So like I will say, like NFL draft analyst Dane Brugler from The Athletic is one of the best of the business. He had a tweet when the news came out and just said, he thinks there'll be 3 to 5 starters that come out of this center draft class in that 3rd to 4th round range. So that's ideal, right? Okay, if you can still use your first couple of Bears draft picks on, defensive line, safety, maybe linebacker, just try and bolster the defensive side of the ball, and then you can circle back and grab a starting center in the 3rd or 4th round, that would be a dream. But I don't want to see the Bears go into this pivotal 2026 season with your plan A week 1 starter as a rookie center. Especially, 3rd, 4th round pick type of player, even if they're starting caliber centers, it's not like a special difference maker 1st round pick, like, whoa, this guy's just dominant and you got to get him on the field. Like, he could be a starting caliber player, but not necessarily be someone you're super excited about starting as a rookie. Like, it's such an important position on the offensive line. Ben Johnson has talked about the importance of the center position in his offense to get the calls right, to get things communicated, and to be a really focal point of the running game in terms of so much of the ball carrier's reads are going off of the center and how well he's able to get out in front and reach block a defensive tackle on the front side or help out the guard on the back side and then quickly get to the second level to free up the linebacker. It's literally running up the middle. It's a pretty critical position in Ben Johnson's offense. So I don't expect that they will just kind of, under invest in the position. But then B, I also don't necessarily expect that plan A will be, hey, we'll just start this rookie 4th round pick at center. I could see a scenario where, okay, you sign a free agent, you draft a center, and then that free agent gets hurt in training camp, and all right, plan B, we have to start the rookie, but not like plan A, this guy, this 4th round rookie or whenever they draft him is our day 1 starter from the moment we draft him. I think Ben Johnson's going to want a little bit something more there, just that's reliable and experienced and more of a sure thing or a known commodity in a veteran as opposed to a rookie that you're still trying to figure out a little bit on the fly there. But as we look at some of the prospects to keep an eye on now that Drew Dalman's not here and center is all of a sudden a big draft need, I think there's a nice little menu to choose from depending on, how the draft board falls in certain rounds. So I think the top name, not in the draft, but the top name as far as a scheme fit for the Bears is going to be Jake Slaughter from Florida. I think he's a guy who is in that 2nd to 3rd round range. Depending on how other teams scheme fit, there's a couple centers that might go before him, so that could push him down to the 3rd round. Or if a team like the Bears just says, hey, this is the scheme fit we want, he's our top center or whatever, then you might take him at the end of the 2nd round just to make sure you get your guy there. Regardless, he's one of the most effective outside zone run blocking centers in this entire draft. Just someone who gets out in space and blocks really well, moving horizontally. A strong scheme fit there. Same with like if maybe not the second round, but you go in the third round or maybe the fourth round. Could you get Logan Jones from Iowa? Certainly, Iowa has a strong history of producing quality offensive linemen, especially on the interior. But another team that runs a bunch of outside zone, that he's used to this kind of scheme that Ben Johnson's going to ask of these guys, and blocks it at a pretty high level. Both these guys are fine in pass protection as well. I think either one of those would be home run fits, we'll say. It kind of depends on, if you get slaughtered in the second versus the third round. I think third round would be great value for him. Second, you might feel like, well, you got to do what you got to do. But if you signed a veteran center, then if you sign Biotis, then I don't know if I want to use a second round pick on a center if he's going to sit most of the year. So then you take Logan Jones in the third, or you try for him in the fourth, or like a little bit later in this draft, like say you get your Biotis, but it's only a 1 or a 2 year deal. So you want to draft and develop your future starting center. Pat Coogan from Indiana. They're a little bit more of an inside zone team, but they ran some outside zone for sure. And, a national champion, a highly successful, well-coached offensive line there at Indiana this past season with Bob Bostad. So I would certainly think Coogan would be a player the Bears would be happy to have. And I think the real steal of this class right now is Matt Golban from Michigan State, someone who I keep seeing in mock drafts as like a 5th, 6th round type of pick. And to me, like, he's one of the better centers in this draft class. I think he's someone who's going to go earlier than we expect him to. Another like outside zone style of offense. I mean, I know Michigan State wasn't anything to write home about this year, so that's probably part of why maybe offensive linemen fall under the radar a little bit when the offense didn't do a whole lot. But like, man, if you could get him in the 5th round, I mean, he could be your starter in 2027, and to feel like, man, that's great value if you're able to land him down there. So like, yeah, it kind of feels like the Bears can feel it out a little bit. And if the second round there's a great defensive lineman there, okay, they can skip on center and wait to the third round. And if in the third round there's a great linebacker or a safety there, well, you can skip on that. And in the fourth round, if there you could still be a center there. Like, it seems like generally around the Bears range here, each area of the draft, you should be able to find a young center to give you someone developing on the bench to eventually take over as the starter for whatever free agent you do end up signing this year. The challenge that I see with this is how you distribute your draft picks this year. Because at the end of the day, you've got 7 draft picks right now. No 6th round pick, 2 7th round picks, but otherwise a pick in every other round. And I feel like when I look at this Bears offensive line, right, we thought that Drew Dalman was going to kind of be the longer-term center option, while Joe Thuney is an older player and a little bit shorter-term option. Jonah Jackson, a little bit of a shorter term option. This upcoming season might be his last year in Chicago. So I would really like to draft a guard this year to develop and potentially replace Thuney or Jonah Jackson next year. And maybe that's Luke Newman, but I'd like another one just to have, because both those guys are going to need to be replaced eventually. And I'm not convinced that the 6th round pick from last year is right away ready to take over as a starter. So it'd be nice to draft a guard this year as well. And given Ozzy Trapillo's injury situation, there's been a lot of talk about drafting a left tackle. If there's one there in the 1st or the 2nd round or whatever that could be your starting left tackle, it would be really intriguing. But then all of a sudden you've used a draft pick on a center, a draft pick on a guard, and a draft pick on a tackle, and that's 3 of your 7 draft picks. And 3 of those, and you still need to get a safety or 2, a defensive lineman or 2, a linebacker in this draft. I mean, and all of a sudden, like, you're running out of picks and slots to use on these picks, like, especially because 2 of your 7 draft picks are 7th round picks. Like, those are not going to be players that you're counting on to contribute. So they almost, I don't want to say they don't count, but like, when I think about filling holes on my roster, the 7th round pick is not going to do that. So really, I feel like I have 5 meaningful picks in rounds 1 through 5 to add impact players to my roster. So then what 5 positions do you do, right? Edge rusher, defensive tackle, center, guard, left tackle. Well, then there's no safety or linebacker. Okay, so then defensive tackle, safety, center, guard, tackle. Well, then there's no edge rusher and there's no linebacker. You just kind of run out of draft picks here to get young players at all the positions you would like to have developmental players in place. I mean, I think the priorities for me are going to be defensive tackle for sure, safety for sure, because even if you re-sign Kevin Byard, you need a young guy there. I think center for sure. I think all of a sudden left tackle becomes a much lower draft priority because you say, screw it, it's not that much of a need. It's a little more of a luxury there. And maybe guard is too at that point. Maybe linebacker as well. I don't know. It's a complicated picture that became more complicated with the retiring of Drew Dalman. I don't envy Ryan Poles having to work through all of this on the fly. But whatever the Bears decide to do at the center position, you can be sure we're going to break it down for you right here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Don't forget to check out the Everydayers Club for an ad-free audio feed of Locked On Bears. Use our promo code FREEAGENCY to get a free month of ad-free Locked On Bears. The website is in the show notes description, wherever you tune in the podcast, lockedonbears.supercast.com. Otherwise, you can keep tuning in the same way you always do. We're free and available on all platforms. Make us your first listen again tomorrow as we start to preview free agency a little bit more. And in exchange, I'll always make sure to give you another opportunity to bear down.